Hello and welcome once again to EDH Study Hall. This is your host, Johnny Slivers. And here we are presented at Cackling Carnarium, going through the history of Magic the Gathering as I reacquaint myself with every single Magic card. It's a journey. It's such an adventure. Oh, God, we ended on Grey Ogre last time. God help us. That was just the worst. The fact that we looked up the stats on this stupid card and 12 decks listed this as part of their 99. So, okay. So hopefully we'll be less boring, but I'm going to see if we can motor through things a little more quickly as I kind of find my tempo here. We're going to just keep things moving along. So next up in the list from Limited Edition Beta is the Green Ward 1 Enchant Creature. Target creature gains protection from green. Nope, sorry. There are better things to do, better options. It's really just a dud. Not worth playing in EDH. Next up is the Grizzly Bears. This is an old school classic. Way back. At one point, this was kind of the benchmark of power and toughness for casting cost that you should be looking for in a vanilla creature. Like a 2/2 for 2 makes. That's why you call them bears. They're like, you just go bears. And that's the idea. It is basically a vanilla 2/2 for 1 and a green. It's on theme with a couple commanders that are now pardon me, I'm blanking on the name of the commander, but there's a recent commander that is all about the bears, and that's where this would fit. But ultimately, even then, there are better bears to play. So, no, Guardian Angel is the next one up. Excuse me. So Guardian Angel here is X and white for an instant. Prevent X damage from being dealt to any one creature. Any further damage that... Yes, let's go look at a newer version. Didn't get past revised. Let's see. Any further damage to the same target this turn can be canceled by spending 1 mana per point of damage to be canceled. So it's like a really specific fog effect, and this is just too costly and not worth it. So as far as EDH goes, I'm not recommending this. Please don't play this card. There you go. Plain and simple. Moving right along. We're going to try and get to some interesting stuff here. All right. Healing Salve. Oh, God. Okay, so this is part of that cycle. You know how like Ancestral Recall was the really big bad? That's the awesome one where you draw 3 cards. This is the dud of the duds. Of the 5 of them, this is 1 white mana for an instant. You gain 3 life, prevent up to 3 damage from being dealt to you from a single target. This isn't really there. There are better ways to gain life in EDH, and this is not one of them. So not worth. This isn't worth your time for EDH. Oh God! Now I want to find out. Healing Salve. Please tell me people aren't playing this in EDH. Are you kidding me? Oh, it's showing up in 54 decks for EDH. I mean, I guess it is technically better than Grey Ogre, but geez, God. Okay. Fine. Helm of Chatzuk. Here's an old school state. Okay. So this is a one mana artifact. You pay 1, give 1 creature the ability to band until end of turn. So this is a banding artifact. And like I said, when we talked about Beneless Hero, banding is kind of one of those weird oddball abilities that's a tad complex and not always that easy to wrap. It's not the most intuitive kind of ability for a lot of players. So this card, unless you've got some kind of cheeky combat shenanigans you want to do by banding your creatures together, I that's the only way. Like for 1 mana, now I gotta check too. Let's look at that one. Helm of Chatzuk. I'll be curious. Showing up in 79 decks. I mean, it's nothing to be amazed about, but I mean, somebody's trying to do a thing. And the newer text is you tap it to make the ability happen. So, I mean, if you need to really control where the combat damage is going, you can nerf some combat situations and make more profitable blocks, but that's about it. And I think for the amount of time and effort, even 1 casting cost and 1 mana activation cost in tapping it, even then might be sort of like, I don't know. it might be interesting to experiment with that, but I wouldn't make a push for it. I think there's better ways to go if you're trying to do combat tricks. So that's Helm of Shadduk. Let's move on. Hill Giant, vanilla 3/3 for 3 and a red, and that's it. It's just a 3/3 for 4. And in most cases, you're going to find plenty of other things for that casting cost that are on the same body that do something, anything that's worth your time. Holy Armor, this is an aura. 1 white mana, target creature gains +0/+2. And then you can pay 1 white, target creature gains an extra +1/+2. This is, yeah, it just basically gives it butt breathing. Yeah. And no, this is, I don't think it's worth it. Holy Strength, again, another aura. 1 white mana for an enchant creature, target creature gains +1/+2. This is, back when the 90s, I played at a local game store. There was someone, they had like Holy Strength and Unholy Strength in a white black deck with Sarah Angels and Sendra Vampire. So the idea was to kind of like suit them up with these enchantments to make them stronger and better. But again, this is a kind of, as far in this current day and age of Magic the Gathering, there are much better options. So this is kind of a dud. I'm going to say no. Howl from Beyond, it's a black instant combat trick. It's X in black. Target creature gains +X/+0 until end of turn. You can sneak up on somebody with this and blow them out, but ultimately the X spells, I think you can do more. There are better options, better combat tricks. This definitely, this is again earliest days of Magic. Things have progressed over time. Things have gotten better, and this is, I would say, pass on this. Next up is Howling Mine. Now this one is definitely worth playing in EDH. It is two colorless mana. Each player draws an extra card each turn during his or her draw phase. So draw an extra card on your draw phase. Everybody around the table. It's like party favor. And that's been an EDH staple for many years. I've been looking up the stats on so many duds. Let's look up what Howling Mine and see what Howling Mine should probably give us a better sense of Howling what? There we go. See, this number seems much better. It's 7,885 decks showing Howling Mine in the list, but even then, that's only 3%. So, I mean, the big liability with Howling Mine is the fact that you don't gain the benefit until after the rest of your opponents gain the benefit. Now, I believe being your draw step. I'm trying to remember what the stat. I'd have to find out what the deal is with Howling Mine. If it gets tapped, if it causes, I don't know. That's some like Static Orb. If Static Orb is tapped, it doesn't affect you when you untap everything. But I can't remember. I think Howling Mine might have that same effect, like where if the artifact is tapped, the static ability that it has is no longer in effect. But I can't remember. I'll have to go do some research on that and try and find out for you. But Howling Mine, that's a great card for EDH, even just mostly for casual, just because you're giving people that benefit up front. But it works in like my Nekuzar deck, where I want them drawing cards and taking damage from whatever Nekuzar style ability I have in play. So yeah, Howling Mine, absolutely worth playing. Probably not if you're going for a competitive form, but yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Good card for EDH. All right, moving on. Herloon Minotaur. Can you believe that once upon a time in the magazine, one of the magazines that was writing articles about Magic and showing the price list, Herloon Minotaur was touted as this is like the gold standard for what you should be getting in power toughness for the casting cost. So it's 1 and 2 red for 2/3. It's a Minotaur. It's vanilla. It is not even going in a Minotaur tribal EDH deck because, again, there's plenty of other Minotaur that do better jobs at what they're doing. So no, don't play this one. Keep going. Herloon. After that, it's Hurricane. Now, Hurricane in EDH, this one is better. I'd say this one has more power behind it and is probably a better bet than Earthquake, because in EDH there is a tendency for people to look for forms of evasion, and when you're getting into combat modes, a lot of times people will try and get into flying as a part of that evasion. You'll get bigger, badder things as a result. You'll be able to hit more relevant targets. Like Earthquake, you'll get a lot of goblins and zombies, and that's that. But if somebody's going full ham with angel tokens, a Hurricane for 5 helps clean that up nice and neat. And that's where Hurricane. This is a good card. I like this. This is. I'd say I'd take this one over Earthquake, and then there are other still better options altogether. Don't get me wrong. Like, there are definitely better ways to go with X spells, but in terms of green, I think if you got to pick between Earthquake and Hurricane, go with Hurricane. Unless you know you're dealing with a bunch of goblins and zombies, then you kind of toggle between the two. But it's a nice kind of, as far as green goes, there's not a lot of board wipe available to green. So especially if you're going mono green, this is a good tool to have at your disposal. And I'd say, I'd give this like an average kind of card. I wouldn't say it's top tier, but it's definitely a good card for taking out all those annoying little Thopter flyers and stuff like that. All right. Next up, an old school classic. This one can be relevant if you got it baked into the right strategy. Hypnotic Spectre is 1 and 2 black for a 2/2 flyer. And let's go. Came back in 2010. Nice. M10. Whenever Hypnotic Spectre deals damage to an opponent, that player discards a card at random. And the random, that's where this is valuable, because a lot of times your hand destruction is going to put a limitation on what you're choosing. And this is another reason, like a card like Hymn to Torak was so valuable. I think Hymn to Torak also would hit the hand at random. So the random means you can actually hit their lands. If you are able to get Hypnotic Spectre out early, either turn 1 or turn 2, this card can really start getting on top of someone and making it harder for them to actually play the game. Like if you hit them and you randomly pull one of their land cards, and that's like a critical, the fact that it can hit lands, that's what makes it better. There's a lot of other hand destruction spells out there that don't give you the option, and very often when it causes the player to discard a card, but it's usually of their choice. So Hypnotic Spectre can find a home. There's because it's on a creature, that ability to force someone to discard a card, this becomes a bit more relevant. And you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go with it. There's still probably better things to do. Unless your deck is really built around trying to prey on the opponent's hands, that's where this would belong. Otherwise, I'd say, keep shopping around and see if there's other better flying creatures for that casting cost, like Vampire Nighthawk right out of the gate. Just in any generic black deck is a better card than this. But if you have a strategy built around destroying hands, this is definitely a good way to go. At least for starters, but then you'll keep looking around, you'll find better stuff. Ice Storm is a sorcery for 2 and a green. It is destroy any one land. This is the green counterpart to Stone Rain. Again, this is back in the early days when they decided land destruction was still fun, and to a point it was, but eventually land destruction got out of hand, so they stopped printing land destruction cards, especially at the casting cost. You are hard-pressed to find any land destruction in a current set where the casting cost is below 4. Usually it's something like Demolish is one of them. They give you a little extra incentive for paying that kind of mana. There's usually either a modal option, like where you can pick and choose what you're going to do, whether it's artifact or land, or you gain something out of it. But the 3 mana casting cost for land destruction had proven to become a problem over time. And again, in EDH, this is when you're up against 3 other players. Typically, land destruction is not the route to go. You're not really getting enough board state advantage when you're going that route. Icy Manipulator. This is an old school classic. It has been reprinted many times. Icy Manipulator is 4 colors for an artifact. You pay 1 and tap the Icy Manipulator. Tap target artifact, creature, or land. This is sort of, you can lock down someone's strategy. If someone's counting on a specific creature, or there's a certain artifact that they're relying on, you just need to shut off one of their combo pieces. This is a great card to have. It can work out well in EDH. I don't think it is the strongest option, but it's not a bad option. I think it's worth looking up and seeing what the stats show. Let's take a look here. Ice Manipulator. Yeah, it's not showing. It's still showing a low count. It's 926 cards, so not too many. It's not necessarily. It's not exactly a staple, but the ability to actually lock out someone's creature, like a critical creature, can be valuable. This is kind of like a lesser Mesavith, so to speak. If you wanted to, if you know there's a creature that they're trying to lean into with their combat, you can tap it before the combat phase, and then it's no longer an option. As opposed to Mesavith, you can actually wait for them to swing and decide which creature you're going to actually send home. So, Ace Manipulator, old school classic, not the strongest option for EDH, but I still like it. Let's see. Got Ice Storm. Illusionary Mask. I, honest to God, don't know what to make of this card. I read it. I read it over again. It reads like it starts off like Morph, but it just, the word soup is thick on this card. It's 2 mana for the artifact. You pay X. You may choose a creature card in your hand whose mana cost could be paid by some amount of or all of the mana you spent on X. All right. If you do, you may cast that card face down as a 2/2 creature spell without paying its mana cost. If the creature that spell becomes as it resolves has not been turned face up and would assign or deal damage, comma, be dealt damage, comma, or become tapped, comma, instead it's turned face up and assigns or deals damage, comma, is dealt damage, comma, or becomes tapped. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast this. I've read this card like a half a dozen times. Still, it's just, it seems weird. It just seems weird. Like, okay, you cheat something into play. You can cast something without paying its casting cost, a creature, but even then, it's like, what? How does this? When does it turn? This is confusing. This card is confusing. I think this card probably has a low cost because people aren't playing because it's just a nightmare to figure out. This is like a judge's like either nightmare or favorite thing to play in EDH. I'm pretty sure it's not banned. Let's go take a peek. No, that's not it. Illusionary Mask. No, it's not in there. It's just like, it's just a weird card all around. It's just a weird card. It is the price that it is because it's in such a limited supply, but even it's not a high demand card. This is it's just a weird card. Save yourself the headache. Play morph creatures. I don't know what else to tell you, unless you are a judge or know somebody who is like an expert on the rules and can really fine tune it. And if I find somebody who can explain it to me, I will share that information. But this card is just weird, and it just feels complicated. I think it's just going to cause complications and arguments at the table. So I would say avoid Illusionary Mask if you can. Next up, Instill Energy is an enchant creature. I'm getting right on top of the mic there. And you pay 1 green for the enchantment. You may untap target creature 1 additional time during your turn. Target creature may also attack the turn it comes into play. So it gives your creatures haste. It gives whatever creature enchants haste. And then untap enchanted creature. Use this ability only during your turn and only once each turn. That's with the 5th edition version. So it's interesting. Like, you have an opportunity only during your turn. It doesn't specify during main phase, so it's technically at instant speed during your turn. And this is interesting. As an enchantment, you can put this on a creature as it comes into play, attack with it. If the creature has an activated ability where you need to tap it, you can untap it and then use it again. This is an interesting aura. And actually, when it comes to an aura deck, I think this card, yeah, if nothing else, it untaps a big bad to be a blocker after it's gone in for a swing. So I think this is definitely worth considering. But I'm gonna guess it doesn't have very good numbers for data points here. And still energy. What's that doing? 1% out of over 118,000 decks. Now that's showing up in an 831 list. That's still, I think this one flies under the radar because people may not be aware of it, since it did not see printings past fifth edition, and that might play a big role in that. This is a neat ability to be able to untap your creatures, because there are like now that we have Commander 19 coming out, I'm from Anjay Falconwrath, I believe. If you're playing Jund and you happen to have these two in the deck, you can get an extra use out of Anjay. Although not being in Rakdos, this doesn't necessarily help too much. I'm trying to think of other commanders that might be there's things that can be done, like getting an extra activation out of a creature can be pretty useful. I wouldn't write this one off. If you're in an aura style deck, I'd give this one a look. Check it out. Instill Energy might actually be worth checking out. It's cheap. You can get revised in 4th edition versions and 5th edition versions for 40, 30, God, yeah, under 50 cents a piece. It is an uncommon, and I think it's worth taking a look at. It's not the worst aura out of beta, actually. I'm happy with this card. I don't know why I'm not using this card. Shame on me. All right, let's get back to the list. Instill Energy. Wow, yeah, I'm happy with that. That's like moments like this. It can feel boring if anybody who comes in and watches and just hangs out with this show. I know this is drudging and it can feel really tedious and boring to go through the list the way I am. But when you go through and you take a second look at some of the cards the way I am and catch this like this, it's nice. It kind of helps build some perspective. I do like I like what I'm doing here. I'm doing this for myself, and I'm sharing it with whoever wants to come along for the journey, just to have something to listen to and hear some feedback on old cards that may have just been forgotten because we're so used to the new flashy, shiny cards that like to curl up the second they come out of the box. All right, so after Instill, let's get through a few more here. After Instill Energy is Invisibility. Invisibility was one of those cards that I wish they had printed. Like, I never understood why they didn't print this card. It's 2 blue for an aura, enchant creature. Target creature can't be blocked, or target creature can be blocked only by walls. So effectively unblockable, because at this point most people aren't playing walls. But it's a neat form of evasion. It can be useful in blue. I think you've got better ways to make things unblockable, but if you're in an aura style deck, this could be handy. And there aren't always that many walls, although we've got the Pakarakaruka, what is it called? John Dunning was making up nonsense about this thing. It's out in Commander 19, that red, white, and blue flying 1/5 wall, and where you choose left or right, and people have to attack in the direction you choose. This could fit into a deck like that, but this would mean, you can't. It gets blocked by walls. So that's the chance. I'm feeling lukewarm on this now. It's interesting, but I think you can do better things for 2 blue, like counter a spell. Next up, we have Ironclaw Orcs for 1 and a red. You get a 2/2. Can't be used to block any creature or of creature power 1 or more than 1. Okay, so basically, any creature with a power over 1, it can't block. So basically, it can't block. But in the deck that this is going to go into, it's not supposed to be blocking. It's supposed to be attacking. It's an aggro card. As far as EDH goes, it's a dud aggro card because there's no point in having this card because there's plenty of other things to put in the deck. So yeah, Ironclaw Orcs, neat idea for the early days to be like this. This is what orcs do, and that's kind of right, but not nothing to write home about. Nope, big nopes. Okay, Ironclaw Orcs. What did I miss? Hang on. Invisibility, Ironclaw Orcs, Ironroot Treefolk. Vanilla 3/5 for 5 mana. That's 4 and a green. Yep, unless you're on Tree Tribal, and even then, nope, this is dumb. Big dumb walking tree body. with a big toughness, but that's about it. Iron Star. Iron Star is the first version of we saw functional reprints of what this card does that showed up in the core set later on. The artifact is a 1 mana artifact with the ability of pay 1, gain 1 life. Uses ability only when a red spell is successfully cast and only once for each such spell. This was, what was it? I'm trying to remember what it was. It was in like M12. I'm totally blanking on it. Is it Dragon Claw? What is that? I can't even. Dragon. No, I'm blanking on what it was. But there's another artifact that did a similar thing. It was one of back in like standard 2012. You'd play this in a if you were on goblins, you would kind of play this this kind of card in the mirror match where you would gain life and kind of negate the damage they were doing. So it was kind of sneaky sideboard tech at one point. Not this particular card. This one, I don't know. This is not worth it for EDH personally. I think it's taking up too much time and resources for what it's trying to do. There's better ways to gain incremental life without relying on whether or not someone's casting a certain color spell. So I would say no, not for EDH. Better things to do. Islands A, B, and C. These are the OG basic lands, illustrated by Mark Poole. And again, if you can get your hands on beta and unlimited basic lands, they're just sweet cards to have. They look awesome, and this just got that nice old school feel, and they fit. They go in whatever deck. It doesn't matter. Basic lands are sweet. Island Sanctuary. Now, this one saw printings up through 5th edition, and it's one of those Island Sanctuary is one of those cards that kind of you lock out. It's a part of a prison strategy. You're locking your opponents out of being able to attack you. So it's 1 and a white for an enchantment. Skip drawing a card until the beginning of your next turn. Only creatures with flying or island walk can attack you. Use this ability only during your draw phase and only once each turn. So skip drawing a card. You're not skipping your draw phase. I think that's important. And let's see. Island Sanctuary. Let's see if Gatherer has if you would draw a card during your draw step, instead you may skip that draw. If you do until all right, the way this is reading, I think this is how I'm interpreting it, and I think I got it right. So let's say you play your Howling Mind. You have an Island Sanctuary in play. You can choose to draw 1 less card, and they have to attack you with either flyers or something with Island Walk. Now, there is an enchantment from Homelands that basically says all creatures lose flying and Island Walk. That's the combo. And if you're on blue-white, that's actually a combo worth putting in an EDH deck. And I'm blanking on what was that spell. We got to find this out. Yeah, I got to figure out what that is. I'm going to go badly about that if I don't figure it out. All right, so we're going to figure this one out. It was in Homelands. I know that much. It was blue. And there it is. Mystic Decree. That's what it was. All right, so Island Sanctuary and Mystic Decree is the combo. All creatures lose flying and Island Walk. You play your Island Walk and Mystic Decree, and there it is. You've basically locked aggro out of attacking you. Now, there are lots of ways to kill enchantments in EDH, so it's something to bear in mind. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you have enough strategy built in to protect them. But usually, if you're going to run this combo, you're going to be running a Pillow Fort style deck where they're already going to have a hard time attacking you. This is just adding on top of that. So you're playing this with Propagandas and Ghostly Prisons and those styles of enchantments. And ultimately, you're doing something like either milling out the opponent, or you're doing there's some other strategy at play where you are buying time, and this is part of that strategy. So it's Island Sanctuary and Mystic Decree, and actually that's probably a good stopping point here, I think. Didn't quite go as quickly as I wanted to, but I think that's a nice Nice transition. Yeah. Island Sanctuary. Might as well look at the stats while we're at it. All right. So Island Sanctuary played in 1% out of the 114 decks that it would show up in, and 979 decks. And I'm guessing, I'll be curious. Let's look up Mystic Decree. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see how close those numbers are. Mystic Decree shows up in less. So that's interesting, because that's where Mystic Decree would be applied. Huh. Interesting. And I imagine part of that is the casting cost. Island Sanctuary hitting as early as it does helps kind of stave off critical attackers in the early game. That might be what's going on there, and there may be other things helping Island Sanctuary just do its job better. But this is the old combo that I remember, and I don't think it's a bad one. I mean, if you're playing Pillow Fort strategy, I think it can be useful. But I wouldn't be surprised if Mystic Decree gets the first cut if you're trying to fine tune the deck and you're looking to put a better strategy in there. This might actually be one of the first things to go when they're making those edits. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. So there it is. I think that's a good time to wrap things up here. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the meandering as I wander my way through beta, and then we'll slowly get there. We're gonna make it happen. Again, hope you like the stutter and stammer. Oh, it's one of those days. So like and subscribe, leave a comment. If you have any questions, please feel free to look me up on Twitter. I'm at Johnny Slivers. And until next time, hope you have a great and wonderful day, and may your top decks be epic.